Hey guys, this is going to be the final wrap up to the SS project. I know I've made a lot of videos in regards to the SS, with the dyno tanning, the install and all of that. So the last thing a lot of people have requested was like a part number list and pricing and stuff like that. I'm not afraid to share that information. So I've got two documents to share with you. The first is going to be the pricing, the part numbers and pricing. I'm going to have an Excel spreadsheet that I'm going to upload to my Dropbox account, and it will have all of the part numbers on it, the price that I paid for it, and the grand total at the bottom of the spreadsheet. So just a quick overview, I've spent about $3,200 on this swap. I did do some upgrades that you guys don't need to do, but for my swap I did the TIG welding on the ZL1 intercooler lid. I did the AN fittings, the air intake, which actually I didn't cover in this because that's not really part of the swap, but the air intake and some stuff like that. So there was some custom stuff that I did for the swap, so I'll include that. The second document is going to be some general instructions and notes that I took, because when I did the swap I actually had a really hard time following the coolant system, because the ZL1 and the CTS-V, both coolant systems are a little bit different. Like, yes, it's the general same principle, but I've got kind of a hodgepodge of both cars. I've got the ZL1 intercooler lid, I've got the CTS-V breather, the bleeder tube, the cobalt fill tube thing is actually off of a cobalt. Then I've got the front radiator set up. So I was going to run the Camaro ZL1 heat exchanger. I actually got that from, I think, like Camaro5.com. One guy was selling it used. I bought it, took the car apart, and found all the crap I was going to have to move, including the transmission cooler and the tank for the windshield washer reservoir. I didn't want to move any of that crap, so that's how I ended up with the STG Motorsports like bolt-on heat exchanger. So I had a real weird setup, and I found a diagram online which gave you like a directional, like a coolant directional flow with arrows going through the entire cooling system. That's also included on my second document. So let's go into detail on those documents. But like I said, before we start that, I will have a link to my Dropbox account for both of those files down below. Okay guys, like I was saying, here's a part number, here's the cost. So I bought my blower for $550. I actually bought the blower over 2 years ago because I knew I was going to do this project, and the prices just kept growing higher and higher. So I'm not sure you'll get a blower that cheap nowadays, but this, just like I said, this just gives you a breakdown of all the costs. Now, if I did a sum, these are all the parts that the Chevy SS groups and the Pontiac G8 group will say. So that total is $1,800.45. That's just going to be for like the supercharger, the front accessory drive, the tensioner, the bolts, the brackets, the idlers, the pulleys, the crank pulley, and that stuff. So that's what I have in just the hard parts of like the actual supercharger. And then down here, let's do a sum of this column, of the rest of the column. So I've got about $1,800 in the supercharger parts of like the main physical parts, and then I've got about $1,400 in accessories. Half of that is actually the heat exchanger. So you can see I bought that heat exchanger for $750. So what's the extra? The solid isolator inside the blower, that was $16. The ZL1 fuel line adapter, that's actually the fuel line going from the firewall to the fuel rail, that was $35. The intercooler pump, that was $50. So just stuff like that. And then I've got all of the plug and play harnesses, because I didn't want to cut up my car. My car's still under warranty. Well, was under warranty, but I don't want to mess up the car, so I bought all of the adapter harnesses, including the Magnuson intercooler pump harness, the evap sensor harness, the throttle body extension, the map extension harness, and then the IAT breakout harness from Casper's. So I bought 5 harnesses, and that's honestly probably like $200 right there. Yeah, easily $200. So, and then the valve covers, not 100% necessary for the swap, but for the bolt-on LSA stuff, like the brake booster, the PCV system, and that stuff, for that to work, that's why I upgraded. Plus, you don't have to mess with the brackets, drilling, and screwing around with that stuff, because it helps clean up the look of the car, because you have your coil brackets mounted right to the valve cover, not to those stupid metal brackets. So that stuff, and then the hoses, the map sensor conversion, because I switched to the LS3, LS7 Corvette style map sensor, and the PCV hose. So I have a grand total of $3,282. I ended up having, I actually had the fuel injectors from another project, so I have 60-pound injectors. Expect to spend around $200 to $300 on those, just depending. I bought a set of secondhand 60-pound injectors off a guy from Corvette Forum. I think I spent between like about $250. And then tune, your tune's gonna be, you depend. I think my tune was $500, $550, something like that. So the fuel system could be as low as $300. It could be expensive as like $3,000. It just depends on how you go. Like for my setup, like I've said previously, I know that I was going to be like stock ZL1 system, so my fuel system was only a couple $100. I'm good for now, but if I do any modifications, I'm going to have to bite the bullet and buy like the 950 1000 cc or the 95 pound per hour. Those are like $600. So I'm going to have to do that. Then you get into the fuel pump. Yes, we've got a ZL1 fuel pump, but I don't know what that pump can handle with stock, with how crazy you can get. So I know one guy with a Magnuson heartbeat kit. He's actually running the stock fuel pump, but he has a booster pump with it, and I think he's in the mid 600s on horsepower, or maybe 700, something like that. But so maybe there's some room to go on the fuel pump, but I am out of injector as of right now. So that was the first document. The second document that I'm going to include a link to is my LSA Install Companion. Really what I did was I just took the notes that I found on the SS forum as well as the G8 board and kind of weeded it down, to the information that I specifically needed. So I've got, your brake booster hose, your evap purge system, include the part numbers, and as well as kind of what plugs into what. PCV system, mine is kind of unique because I'm using the ZL1 and the ZL1 valve covers, so that will vary. Catch can, really, I just got the instructions off of the Elite Engineering website. It's pretty simple. The Magnuson harness, I covered this in a previous video. This is just kind of text of telling you what to do. So the intercooler system, this is going to vary depending on your setup. Like I've got the Cobalt / CTS-V, the filler tube. I've got a custom heat exchanger. I've got the Dash 12. Yeah, there's a Dash 10. I don't remember, Dash 10 or Dash 12 AN lines on mine, the braided hose. Where is that? Anyway, this was the document that I was wanted to tell you about. This is off of a CTS-V, but it really shows you which direction the coolant comes out of. So you've got the top port on the back of the CTS-V lid, which I believe is the same as ZL1, comes out, goes to the CTS-V / Cobalt filler tube, and then it goes into the hard tubes on the frame, which in our case is going to be a custom flexible tube, and that goes all the way down to the driver's side bottom of the heat exchanger. You go through the heat exchanger, and this is where you go from hot to cold, because your fluid has gone through the radiator, it's hitting air, so it's going to cool down, coming out the passenger side, and then the passenger side goes into the, I call it the air intake of the water pump, of the CTS-V style water pump, like the inlet. So that's your air coming in. The electric motor is going to spin it, push it through and up, so it's going to come out the like boosted side. Yeah, because that's your inlet. This is supposed to be your boosted air coming out, or coolant in this case coming up through the system, through the hard tubes, and into the bottom of the ZL1 / CTS-V intercooler. Like I was saying, I was having a real problem trying to figure this stuff out, because you're looking at a ZL1 parts diagram, you're looking at a CTS-V parts diagram. They're different. They moved crap around, like the pump's in a different spot. I think the heat exchanger setup is a little bit different, because on the ZL1, I think one is higher than the other, but they're both on other sides, and it's just a real weird setup. So we can go back to the document. So I have the intercooler system diagram. I actually documented both lids, the ZL1 lid and the CTS-V lid, because I just didn't know what users are going to be using. Then I've got the cut. Then I've got all the part numbers, where I got it from. Okay, it was -12. And then the fuel system. Talk about the 60-pound injectors that I had left over. Use the ZL1 fuel rail, and then this is where I talk about the LSA, the stock SS fuel line. That's where I grabbed a socket and ever so slightly tweaked the stock SS line more toward the front of the driver, more toward the front of the car, more toward the front end. Air intake. This is where I have the Spectre parts that I use. I also have all this information in the air intake video, but air intake map sensor. This is where I talk about breaking out the Casper's harness, and you have to rewire those two ports. Steam port, I didn't really have a problem with that. I just simply moved it. I just bent the port out of the way and got the blower where I needed. Crank pulley. Talk about the puller, getting the pulley off the wall, off the crank. Applying anti-seize. Have your part numbers. Your crank bolt. And then, oh, okay, right here in the last part is the ports on the supercharger. There's 2 or 3 ports on the top. There's 2, one for the muffler and one for the brake booster hose right here. And then there is the wiring, or not the wiring, but the vacuum lines for the supercharger bypass. There's 2 ways to do it. Pre-blower, post-blower. I did discuss this, but this is actually a document. So this is post-blower, this is how I did it. Then there's pre-blower, this is another way to do it, but I did the post-blower setup. And there's some pictures. But like I said, this is just me gathering information from the various sources that I had. Like, I did a whole lot of research on this supercharger swap, and I hope this document helps you guys. Both documents, really. I mean, one's your parts, your prices. Your second document is not really a complete how-to, but it's a good overview of each subsystem of this install, because, like I said, videos give you so much detail, but this is more of a in-depth overview for each section. I can't say this. I won't say this. I won't say it's 100% complete. I'm sure I missed a few things, but I think this will be a good starting point for people to read, go through, and hopefully you guys have good luck with your supercharger install. I really haven't had a problem with mine. I've been driving it for a good month and a half now, and like I said, I've not had any issues with it. Been driving to the car shows, been driving it all over North and South Carolina, and it's been a real fun car. So, hey guys, the last update I have is I've actually gone through both of these documents, the Word document and the Excel document. I've added links to Amazon so that you guys can find these items even easier. Just all you have to do is click on the link and it should open up to the Amazon item that's out there. Now, like, some of these are blank. You're not going to be able to find all of them just because Amazon doesn't carry everything, but it should give you a good heads up, a head start on where to find things. Like I said earlier, I hope these 2 documents help you guys out. Good luck on your supercharger swap and have a great day. Thanks for watching my video. Don't forget to like it, and if you haven't already, please subscribe.